Hello and welcome to the BurnCast. I'm Brady Byrne.
And I'm Kim Cass.
Today we're looking at a book called The Showstopper by author Kyle Robertson. As always, any criticisms directed towards the authors or works that we discuss are exaggerated for entertainment purposes and are not meant to be taken personally. Thank you for listening, and we hope you enjoy the show. Let's talk about The Showstopper.
Let's talk about The Showstopper. Welcome, everybody, to the season finale.
Yes, and if you listen to our show, you would know that historically, in the last episode of the season, we try to find something special.
And there is no change to that plan. We searched and we searched. We found Scar. And the tightly gened man delivered a book well under par. Yeah. And we dropped that book about halfway through, as it was nothing more than shitty, sexist schlock.
Yeah, and not even good enough as a monster book to really carry itself like All Your Ruins was. So we went back to Amazon to try and find, like a Vigilante Reloaded, something that really isn't necessarily a good book, but is at least interesting and is a cut above the rest.
Yeah. Well, what are we looking for? That is a good place to start.
Yeah.
Now, we look at self-published work, or at least at the very minor end, books that aren't going to be looked at by anyone, traditionally published or not. And to that end, we have this quickly dying hope that one day that we'll come across books that we go, wow, this is the showstopper. This is the book that we've always dreamed of. It's unheard of, it's well written, and it's got things to say.
Yeah, hopefully it's like what we imagine the benefits of self-publishing could do, which is like a book that's good enough to go to print, but maybe didn't get picked up by a publisher.
Yeah, but it's gone on an episode of this huge podcast, and now it's blowing up big time. Now, that's what I envisaged for my own book. And hopefully, there's another podcast, if not this one, where when my book lands to the self-publishing world, that it will get picked up and it will be noticed.
Yes, and, that may happen, authors out there. Send us a donation first. See what happens when we go to record on that book. But I should say, we also go into every episode hoping that is the book. We don't just say okay, final episode in the season, let's try to find something good. We always look for something good.
Even if we know the book is bad, then we hope that it's bad in the way that it's got horrible writing, it's got an idea, it's got some characters, it's trying to say something.
The main criteria is that it's interesting. No matter what that means, whether it's interestingly bad, interestingly good. It never is, but the Showstopper was our brightest star.
Yeah. Well, we looked at it and we saw all the things that we hoped to see. Yeah. We had a guy who was obviously coming off the back of some form of education, in writing. In writing,
yes. The cover looked like actually produced. It didn't look like a ripoff or some kind of
a great cover, if I may say so, for this type of work. And really, I kind of, and this may have been the pedestal that it shouldn't have been put on, but I put it on a separate pedestal, a higher one, a higher ranking pedestal than the books that we usually work out, because it did seem like it was going to be better. It had a better cover. It had an author behind it who didn't look like some guy that had just fallen off the back of a boat.
No, you read his bio, you go on his website, Kyle Robertson on his website, and he had an event for the launch of this book. He had, written about how he originally published this with a different cover, and now he was reissuing it with a better one because he was really trying to make it work. And all of those things strike us as passion for your craft and like an actual hope and confidence that your book is something different. And we bought it and we're sold on that idea. And then
the show stopped, didn't it? That show stopped right there. The show stopped when we started reading.
Yeah,
really.
It was like an actor who jumped out on the stage and forgot all of his lines.
Yeah. I mean, well, or perhaps it's better to say that it's an actor that, jumped up on stage and did his lines, but they're all phoned in. There was no emotion, there was no feeling. Yeah, and that's kind of what puts this book in a unique place among the other books that we have looked at is that it's written well.
Oh, yeah. It's written as much as I could say like a quote-unquote real book as anything else we've read. And not just in a prose or a grammar level, there's like actual understanding of the structure of a story and like, you know, how to use metaphor and different kinds of like scene setting and how to follow up, you know, a character description with a character demonstration, all that stuff. It's like you said, it is very educated writing.
Yeah. And is something that makes reading it go down way smoother, right?
Oh, yeah.
I'm not trying to read this book like I'm trying to read Clash of the Blue Demons.
No.
Because you need to put in serious amounts of efforts to get the story out of a book like that.
No, in this one you don't have to do any extra interpretation. It's like very easy to read.
Yeah.
And the plot flows.
Yeah.
And we should say that we didn't like pick this up and start reading it and immediately discover that it wasn't, you know, what we were looking for. It was a process of unfolding the idea that this is, you know, something a little more typical of what we actually look at.
And sadly, there is also an element of you think it's good and you keep holding on to that hope and you go, it's going to
start justifying like, no, you know, that scene wasn't so great or this character's really flat.
Or
but
what
maybe
was that dialogue, you know? But you keep on holding on to that idea that, wow, but it's written well and that means he's got something going. No. Because it doesn't actually matter how well you write. Because if your ideas aren't there and your conflicts and your stories aren't in the flesh and begging to be read.
Yeah. And, you know, there's a little more nuance to this book than just it's bad. Because we look at a lot of books that are just bad. I think it's going to take a little more to unpack what's wrong with this story. And, you know, I think we're going to give credit where it's due to certain elements and take that credit back when poor elements are thrown back in our face.
Yeah.
So the premise of this book is that you've got 1920s, you know, glitz and glam of Broadway.
Yeah, Tinseltown, all of that jazz.
Yes. And it's all about the world of theaters and acting. And you've got the Showstopper, who is like a criminal mastermind who kind of sabotages different play productions. You don't know why. He doesn't like kill people. He just like, you know, shoots the chandelier out and it crashes and all the actresses' dresses are ruined and the young dames in the crowd are, you know, fanning their gloves and wasn't that something?
Yeah. As if those sort of things wouldn't attract more people to the theater because like what if the Showstopper arrives and, you know, like you could see the failure of the theater in progress. Like, to me, it didn't actually spell out, you know, this is how you ruin theaters.
No, not necessarily.
But good enough, right?
Yeah, good enough.
Premise.
And so that's a premise, right? And that's probably, I would say, where like the uniqueness of the ideas end.
Yes.
Because it's a fun idea. It sets up like, you know, a level of stakes that I'm into, which is it's a low scope story. You know, like this isn't going to be like, you know, some save the world kind of stuff. It's just like, all right, you know, we've got a caper of the week kind of structure to this.
A bit of city corruption, police corruption. You've got the theater people, the love interest. You've got all these core elements.
These like building blocks of a story.
That you should expect, I think.
Yeah.
However, they're handled in a way where it's like, what you expect, it's so railroad that like you can see the story all the way down. All you need to do is look out the window of your carriage and you can see exactly where you're going.
Oh yeah.
And there's no deviation and stuff like that.
The problem is that like the reliance on tropes is so strong that there is basically nothing else on top of it. You know, if you want to introduce to me that there's the grumpy police chief and, you know, he doesn't care about the Showstopper. He's got, you know, real crimes to solve, but the city council is breathing down his neck to go after this, you know, new drama case. Okay, you know, you've set up a very predictable storyline for me. Build on that and surprise me with
twists and turns.
It doesn't do that.
No. The problem is that when you have the grumpy police chief, that's okay, providing that the things that he wants, his goals, his situation, they all make sense. However, if the police chief is just grumpy because he needs to be the grumpy police chief for other characters to have their conflict, then the disillusion is there. You know, I can't believe that this police chief, his precinct is in turmoil and is about to be closed down because of the Showstopper. Yeah. And he's only going to assign the worst officer to the case that he hates because he is trying to stack things against this police officer. But why would he do that?
No, that's where the character motives, if you have built the character from the ground up on a trope, then you have no legwork for like them actually doing anything because his goal is to prevent his police precinct from being shut down. So he gives the case to someone he knows will fail at it, a brand new beat cop, Irish beat cop, who has no detective experience at all.
There's no hope to solve the case.
No, he gives him the biggest case of the century, the Showstopper, and then gets furious when he can't solve it.
Yeah, and not to mention that the inciting incident, for example, where he gives McKenna, the Irish police officer, the case, is one where he spills coffee. McKenna spills coffee on another officer, and then they get into a shouting match where he uses sailor's tongue, and therefore this impresses because Shouty police chief likes other men who shout.
Yes.
So he therefore goes, haha, what a great shout you did. Here's the biggest case of the century. Don't fuck it up.
Yeah. Like, oh, you fucked it up? How could I have not seen this coming?
Yeah. It's just all of the outside elements that put the characters where they want to be for the story, they don't make any sense, which means that it feels like the characters are cardboard. You could push them over. They're just mannequins, you know?
Yes.
For the few that do have, you know, something to do.
Like they're literally just there to set up other things. They don't feel like dynamic characters in a story sense.
Yeah, and you need your side characters, even those ones, even the ones that aren't necessarily in the story, but they play key roles for other characters. They need to be real people as well. You can't just have them ill thought and broken.
You can give me, he's the grumpy police chief, to quickly, like give me that character. But if that's where my understanding of him ends, then I have nothing to look forward to. You can, set me up with, okay, here's your grumpy policeman. Here's your wise British guy. Build on top of them. Because then I'm like, all right, you've gotten me into the story with the trope. I kind of know what the pieces look like. Put them together interestingly, but they never move. This is like story development by, Lego blocks.
Yeah, it really is. and that's why it's kind of sad, because the writing in places is so good. It has it knows how to write itself. Like it knows how to write the trope. It knows how to write the cheese.
Oh, the cheese.
And the cheese is critical to the story, but I think for the wrong reasons, right? Like you can have a cheesy story where the characters are spicing up this setting by being a part of it, the
chandelier drops and all the actors rush out and
everyone's like over exaggerated versions of that timepiece.
Yeah, and then the main actor, he clutches the dropped piece of glass and he says, "Showstopper."
Yeah, like it's just like that the whole way. And in the beginning, I was really thrilled by that because I was like, it's so cheesy. It's going to play on like my ideas about what's going to happen and subvert them with some sort of trickery where but no, it just goes like, oh, the characters and the setting is cheesy. Oh, and the story is cheesy too.
Yes.
So the whole thing is cheesy. And as we all know, cheese is very yummy paired with wine and nuts and other things. Cheese is not so yummy when you get a huge circular, and you're forced to eat the whole thing. Like, just that's not how cheese works.
No,
like,
it's not.
And it's painfully
cheese is a sometimes food.
Yeah, cheese is a little in small amounts, paired with other things.
Yes. So we've got the police element. We've got like the the classical theater,
Broadway stuff.
The angry theater owner who, after the Showstopper attacks, he fires all his actors because he
wants to clean house and start again.
And move past it. And then we get introduced to the main character who works for this theater. He's the janitor. His name's Tom Wilkins. And we're clued in very early on that he is the Showstopper.
Yeah,
it doesn't try to obscure that or anything, which I actually like because it's extremely obvious that he's the Showstopper.
Yeah.
Just in the way he's written and his immediate disdain for actors and show business in general.
Yeah.
So I like that wasn't obscured because that would be wasting my time.
Yeah. Now, it's done correctly there that when it's obvious to the reader, why not just tell them to make sure that they are not being insulted?
Yeah.
But it doesn't do that with all the other character mysteries. Like, that there's other characters who you don't know what their real goals are or blah, blah, blah. but it's so obvious to the reader that that guy's the saboteur or that's the dirty policeman, because of the cheesy dialogue that they always like. Imagine dialogue where you have two people and one of them's trying to hide something from the other person and he has to mutter it under his breath, no one does that. And it's you're poisoning your own story by like making it so obvious through usage of cheese that this man is the mystery man.
Well, that's the
that
thing.
By the time you finally tell me, I'm like, can we skip this part? Because I have known since the beginning of the book that X, Y, Z.
It's the problem we've run into time and time again, where while the structure and the story fits itself in places, there's a misunderstanding of the pacing of information to the point where the reader is way too ahead of the story.
Yeah.
Where it's like, yes, I know that these characters are not who they say they are, but when the characters I'm reading about don't know, and they're sitting around going, what's going on? I'm just like waiting for them to get the obvious information that I already know.
Come on, like think about Scooby-Doo, like Scooby-Doo is a show where there's a mystery to be solved, yes, and it's made for kids, so they're not trying to lowball it. And even in that show, like the only thing that really gives it away sometimes is his mustache is slightly too curled, or like it's. Go watch Scooby-Doo before you try to hide your character's intents, because like it's
get the basics of a mystery down.
Yeah, it's a 101 course on that. Like, and it's so very disappointing because sadly, based on how good the writing was in the beginning, and
the beginning has the most steam of the story,
and I was eating that cheese and I was going like, wow, that was a flavorful bite. That's going to be good in
small amounts.
In small amounts. I hope it's not the whole book, but it is the whole book. And then, wow,
then you're
you
sick
get
to
bloated.
Your stomach. So we've got Thomas Wilkins. He's the showstopper, and he's the janitor for a theater that he disdains. Yes. And we find out that he hates actors in an extremely dramatic and understandable way. I'm going to say this in two parts. That when we get his backstory of, his dad was a piece of shit actor and it made his mom so sad that she killed herself in front of him. This is why Tom Wilkins hates actors. That's fine. You have a character who has such an extreme and over-biased attitude towards a kind of profession. It doesn't make sense that he would hate all actors just because his asshole dad was an actor. But that's how people are sometimes. We do build biases like that. The problem is when his overdone bias is completely reflected by the narration itself. Every actor in this book is an actual piece of shit.
Yeah. They're just like all scumbag liars, and like every single one is there is no actor in this story that has any like redeemable qualities.
Well, except for his love interest.
Well, except for the love interest, but she is also a liar, to some degree. And I also think that, okay, you can sell me on a romance if it's like love at first sight. They're just in love, but
this goes through the whole will they, won't they, and
I know, like
all the beats you're expecting.
Yeah,
but the problem again is that like you can have a character who has this bias, and I will even be more sympathetic towards him if he struggles to unravel that idea. But when every single actor who runs into him calls him street scum, snake, he's a lowlife.
Get back to work, you filthy janitor rat.
Like, you are less than human, and it's like
you dog. Like it. Then you go, well, no wonder he wants to shoot chandeliers and ruin shows, because they do treat him like shit.
Yeah, but that's the thing is like you haven't convinced me that his nearly psychotic view of the world is something to be sympathetic for, because it's literal. Like yes, in this world, actors are the biggest scum of the earth, but like that's not how it should be reflected.
No, it should be like this is a character flaw where, his hatred for actors blinds him to his love interest or something like that, But instead, like, no, he doesn't even have an inner conflict with it, really. He just goes, how could she be an actor? Well, but you never
Actors are bad.
Yeah, like, but you never see him actually, like, quibble with it right until like the very third act, really, where they do have shouting fights at each other and stuff like that, but way too long and way too little.
Yeah, way too little. it's drawn out to the nth degree, especially when, yes, he meets this love interest who is literally described as a fiery redhead.
Yes, a fiery redhead. Like
it's like not even trying to cover the fact that it's a trope.
Yeah, and that's where those particular lines of description and things like that go. Oh, he knows it's tropey, and he's going to play on it to deceive me in some way. Like, no. I'm excited for the twists and turns of this book. No, she just is a vapid redhead, actor whose
personality ends at fiery.
Yeah, and
she has red hair.
Yeah,
redheads are fiery.
She's one of the main characters, and her more than anybody else could be replaced by a mannequin wearing a wig. She doesn't do anything.
No, she doesn't. In fact, she is part of the reason why this book is probably 100 pages more than it needs to be.
Yeah.
Because you've got this whole thing where they set up that she's an actress, and Janitor Boy, he loves her, but he hates actors.
And how is she going to convince him through her? Maybe it's the matinee, and she's out there and she's performing, and he's like, oh my god, but this is acting from the heart. This is something else.
This reevaluate my bias.
This isn't lying. She's being more truthful on stage than she Where is that conversation?
No, she likes him because he's dark and mysterious.
Yeah, and he likes her because she's pretty.
Yeah.
So you could replace her with a mannequin, and the story would not change in the slightest. Except maybe there's a little bit less cheesy dialogue, which, in all accounts, in my book, is a good thing.
Well, let's talk more about the dialogue, because the contrivance that prolongs this part of the story is that they do like each other, but actor girl is dating another actor boy.
Yeah.
Who literally calls Tom street scum and these sorts of things. And Tom, of course, how could you be dating that brute?
Yeah.
That asshole. He's an actor.
Yeah, he's a Chad. He's just a Chad.
Yeah, it's literally
it's like the Chad actor versus the virgin janitor.
Well, we even get to this point where they meet each other one night on the street, Tom and the girl. And he's like, I can't believe you're still seeing Actor Boy. And she said, yeah, well, he's actually all right. He's pretty, and he has, good conversational skills. He's not here right now because he's back at the theater teaching the other theater girls some tongue techniques. I guess it's an acting thing. And it's like,
so you're also belittling her intelligence,
and mine as well.
Yeah,
who in their right mind would receive a piece of dialogue like that and not understand that he's out with other girls?
Yeah.
It makes the character seem dumb, and it makes you seem like you think I'm dumb for not
because I believe that she's that stupid that she would say that to him and not recognize that that's an obvious euphemism for cunning linguism.
Yeah.
I mean, that's where it also became more and more as the story progressed. The cheese was handling me like I was dumb and not playing on it you're smarter than this.
It's because the conflict in their romance is contrived to the point of no sensible people would have this as a barrier. If she's that dumb that she can't see that this guy is not good for her, which to the book's credit, it doesn't waste time playing that out. In the next scene, she meets him and he's got
kiss marks on his collar. Come on.
No shit. But yes, then that's 20% of the book, and girl and janitor boy can get together. No, they don't.
No,
they don't, because he's about to tell her that he loves her, and she's about to say the same. But then one of them says, "No, I can't. I've got to leave." Yeah. And they just invent reasons not to be together. And that's the kind of shit that puts 100 pages between that interaction and the point they get together, and it is a waste of time.
Yeah. And that's kind of where that's really the problem with the whole book in general, is that you've got the characters, but they haven't got any reason to be doing the things that they're really doing. No. More than his hatred for actors inspires him to, stop shows from happening in clever and unique ways.
Yeah, he's a genius.
Yeah, he's a genius.
Because he built a grappling hook?
Because he built a grappling hook. Now, let's... So, now, we've got this problematic story that's way too cheesy and that
has no identity.
No identity, but a lot of color,
Oh, yes.
And it's so great to read something just in a small manner of praise where I see the setting. I'm reading it and I can see the setting. I have this idea of the theater in my head and the characters running around inside of it. So much of that is missing from the other books.
I feel very present in the story when I'm reading it.
It's supposed to be about theater stuff, but it comes across as like a really poorly written play. Like
it's like the production is all great.
All great.
The costumes are
amazing,
there. And then the actors are
the music is going off.
Yes.
They have a whole symphony they're going, and then but like
the dialogue and the acting is like
what you could expect. But then like the characters just like, we can't do this now, and then they run off.
I can't tell you I love you yet. I need another 50 pages.
Yeah, like it's just you're sitting there and you're like, wow, that was a beautiful scene, but wow, that was stupid.
I will forget this immediately. Yeah.
But we need to talk about what the book is actually about, and where the story draws its inspiration from.
Oh, yes.
And so we're going to start talking about Batman and all the similarities, because when you have books that aren't inspired by stories, right? Or stories to be written. Yes, an idea that needs to be told, a tale that is just dying to be said. You end up taking things from your closest, nearest sitting, whether it be another book or whether it be that DVD that's been sitting on your cabinet. And
maybe your favorite childhood cartoon.
And sadly, this book deviates course in a manner of speaking, and decides to borrow a couple of things.
Oh, well, more like becomes a one-to-one copy of certain things.
Yeah. And it's great because in Batman, right, Batman, he trains for an extensive period of time. He has this tragic accident, just like Tom Wilkins. And his association with crime and his family is there.
Genius technology.
His big company is there, and it's got this genius tech. And all these things come together to create Batman. Tom Wilkins, he is a genius because he creates.
Why is he a genius?
Because he can shoot a chandelier down and stop a show, and he has a grappling hook to get up to the top part of the building.
Well, all the characters keep telling him that he's a genius, so he must be.
Yeah. So he just is without, demonstrating that he is. And that's kind of like really disappointing. Like he has this workshop secretly hidden at his little home where he's building all these little contraptions to help him, do his deeds.
His cat burglary.
But it's like we go to his workshop and we see a grappling hook and a couple of minor little other things. But really, there's nothing else. He doesn't use his superpower, so to speak. And I also want to say that he doesn't even use his presence as a janitor in the
no, it's basically
before the show starts. He's already done some show stopping, and it's like, oh, he's a janitor and he works at the thing, so he gets insider access.
No, he gets fired from the theater.
Yeah, so he doesn't even use his job as a disguise anymore. Like the book is running so thin on
Well, that's the thing.
Just lets go of all its.
It makes sense that Batman, he's a billionaire. And his disguise contrasts that, but he fits into the world despite the fact that he is a vigilante. Tom Wilkins, after he's fired as a janitor, there's no real attention given to what's he doing with all this wealth that he's making from show-stopping jobs, and how is his cover? Why even have a hidden workshop? Who cares about him?
Yeah.
Who would be looking? It doesn't matter that he's a vigilante because the world that is written here literally views him as a street snake.
Yeah. He's the lowest common denominator in this entire hierarchy.
Yeah. Everyone even tells his love interest, don't associate with him. It will ruin your reputation.
And in all honesty, it's not like he uses their prejudice against him as a way of tricking them into thinking, oh, he doesn't play dumb.
Yeah.
He doesn't seduce people by having them explain things to him while he does something else. No. In fact, anything like that is reserved for the other character, McKenna, this Irish officer. And while he really doesn't do much at all,
he bumbles through
the
case.
And he's on the scene when people get blowed up.
Yeah.
But at least he has some redeeming moments where the incumbent police chief is railing on him and belittling him, but he's using it as a way of snatching something off his desk.
Yeah.
But that's the police officer. That's not our main character. Our main character is struggling to even get putting minor things together, and he becomes a pawn for like the main evil guy.
Yeah,
let's
talk about the villain now. You've got, the Showstopper, who is sort of, he's not really a vigilante. He just stops theater productions.
Yeah.
But he gets like a, message every once in a while from someone to do a job.
Yeah.
Some theater owner wants another theater taken out to draw people to whatever.
Yeah.
And he gets a note from someone called the Saboteur, who wants him to take down some sort of production. The Saboteur also sends the police a note supposedly written from the Showstopper saying he's going to stop the show. So he gets set up. Tom gets set up. He goes to do a show stopping. Police is there. Oh no, conflict. Tom now has to find out who is the Saboteur.
Yeah, but again, like what detectives or what he doesn't pull out a gadget, and he doesn't use his superpower, so to speak, to solve this problem. No, because that would require critical thinking and all the great things that make stories awesome.
The whole conflict they've set up there, which could be pretty interesting. Like I said, I like that this is like a low stake story. You got Showstopper, you got Saboteur. They're both out for the theaters for some reason. Tom has like a backstory. He hates actors. He just wants to cause chaos. But the Saboteur's intent is also like,
it's the same thing.
He hates actors too.
He hates actors, and
but he wants to kill them.
Yeah,
like he Tom wants to stop shows. Saboteur wants to blow them up.
Yes.
And so you could have like, okay, they're a foil for each other. But no, their thing just gets railroaded into a damsel in distress. Saboteur's got my love interest.
And I have to stop him before he pulls the trigger. Like, it's just, again, like...
It's vapid.
It's vapid, and it could have been so good. It could have been great. It like that level of writing, like where I would say it's like standard issue writing level needed to produce a book of readability, and couple that with some interesting ideas and some clever characters, and boom, you might actually sell that book. That might actually get some good reviews. Who knows?
What about when the Saboteur says, I'm just like the Showstopper, except I just want to watch the world burn?
Yeah, but not like the Joker though.
No,
not like the Joker.
Oh.
Who also just wants to watch the world burn.
Yeah.
Which is a line from Batman.
Yeah. And the Batman and the Joker, they contrast each other in that
what
way.
about saving somebody via grappling hook technique?
Yeah, that would be cool. What if you got the grappling hook from like a wise old British man, like a butler type, with a cane,
like some sort of old wise man who's been around the block and
and has been helping Tom his whole life.
It's sort of his mentor because his parents were obviously not there. So. And I wonder if there's going to be a nosy reporter and
and the commissioner, the
sergeant, yes, and it's just Batman was on your mind for some reason, and you thought like I can.
I'll just do that.
Remember that scene from the book where there's a big police speech happening in the middle of town. And a particular character is running and trying to find where the gun is supposed to shoot from, and they find a gun, but it's a dummy gun.
And then it goes off, and everyone looks up to the window and discovers him there.
He's the one in the room with the gun. Where have we seen such things before? The blockbuster movies, something on the tip of my tongue.
I mean, we can even go way back to the Tim Burton Batman, which has its climax in a bell tower. Which this book also has.
Well, I mean, bell towers commonplace for any showdown, really.
Oh, yes. Especially the kind where the evil bad guy reveals his identity, reveals his plans, gives the main character plenty of time to come up with a cunning way to get out of the situation.
Yeah. It's like literally... It's done in the way where like he thinks like perfect time to use this trope to get out of the situation. Readers are gonna love this. Like
it is like a story put together like a Lego set. When you put a Lego set together, it looks great at the end. It's functional. It's well designed. But you're not creative for for putting Legos together, are you? Like,
well,
if I go buy Legos and I put them together, am I being creative?
I remember one good time when I was very young and I received a AT-AT Star Wars Lego robotic walking thing, and I feel pretty creative making that fucking thing. It didn't.
How old were you?
8, 9.
Okay.
Around that age. And when
this book was written by someone above the age of 9.
Well, yeah, but I mean, the love for Batman, I would say, is around that age level.
Yes, that's it. We're putting our own puzzle together now.
And, yes, the AT-AT, 2 of its legs walked backwards while it was trying to walk forward. So it had a little bit of a movement issue. But I did feel very creative, putting it together.
Well, there's a spectrum here between, like, yes, most of the books we read, they've gotten the instructions are out there. You can take the tropes, you can put them together, but like most people don't. They're trying to do their own ideas, and they often fail.
Yeah.
This person said, I'm going to use ideas that work, but I'm going to put them together in a way that looks functional, looks structured, by all accounts does what it sets out to do, but it's completely lifeless in the end. The creative elements are not of your own making in that sense.
Yeah, it is a completely trope constructed, predictable. I picked up this book and I was like, I'm so happy that I get to read a story that has structure and things like that. However, structure doesn't mean predictability, and it definitely doesn't mean, that you can't subvert anyone's expectations or challenge the reader in any meaningful way, because who would want the reader to...
Speaking of challenges, what about the twist?
Oh my God. Wow. So breaking from Batman and slipping back more into the trope of the 1920s, where every old Englishman is a bad guy, because in America and during those time periods, the English were commonly seen as dastardly villains, and of course they're cane twirling and governor.
Hello, governor.
Hello, governor. And I love that, like, he has to make sure that, he's really British. So basically, every sentence, you get a hello, governor out of it. Yeah. The bad guy, the saboteur is going, hello, governor. How are you doing today, ma'am? Hello, governor.
Yeah. And of course, you find out that Reginald, the mentor of...
Reginald Coxley, the nice old man, and the only other British person in the entire story.
Yeah, who also happens to say governor.
Yeah.
Has been helping Tom, through his days as, up-and-coming showstopper. Wow, he turns out to be the saboteur.
Oh my God, who could have thunk it? Who could have thunk that the only 2 people that ever say governor repeatedly on non-stop tracks that they're the same person?
Yeah.
I mean, like, who could have thunk it?
Yeah. I will say the only part of the whole saboteur stuff that I actually liked was that the saboteur's plan kind of makes sense. He helped Tom become the showstopper so that Tom would ruin these theaters. That drives all the business to certain other theaters. And the saboteur, Reginald, he goes up and buys the ones that have been made redundant. And now he basically owns every theater on the block. And so when he gets a chance to put shows on, he loads them up with bombs. And this is his big plan to it makes sense the way the villain has constructed his plan, but that doesn't mean anything if you still have that tropey scene where he explains this to Tom in detail and, why don't you join me, Showstopper? We are both the same.
Yeah.
We have the same motives, governor.
Yeah. Governor, hello. You bomb theater people. Our parents were horrible, and we must governor these people.
And you hate actors, and I hate actors. We're the same. And then Tom says, no,
we're not the same, because I love the fiery redhead.
Yeah.
She's so fiery. She has green eyes, and she's from Ireland.
Yeah. And yes, they stop the saboteur.
Well, of course, they stop it in the classic fashion of the girl's got the gun to her head, and
she's just been tied up. She's just an item for him to reclaim.
Well, she's the mannequin, and the mannequins can be moved, they can be placed, you can put their arms up and down, and they're very versatile.
Yes, and that is basically the end of her function in the story, is to be something for Tom to chase after.
Yes.
His understanding that all actors aren't so bad does not come from her demonstrating to him that actors aren't bad.
It's not like we have a scene where she's not being the hoity-toity upper-class lady that maybe Tom perceives her of being, but she's actually down at the city mission, handing out leftovers and, really putting it in for the lower class. Like, no.
She grabs onto his hip after the case is solved, and they grappling hook into the night.
Yeah, like, Spider-Man and Mary Jane.
He's reclaimed his item, his victory token,
yeah.
And he is out of the story now.
I hate all actors except for this fiery redhead who really has a thing for grappling hooks. Come on, Robin, let's get out of here. Oh, sorry, wrong story.
That's kind of the end.
That's where the show stops.
Yeah, although the story, for some reason, sets itself up for a sequel because the bad guy has had his face blown off by firecrackers or something in the climax. And then when he's put on death row, the police officer recognizes that that's not really him.
Yeah. Is it like, but there's so many, I had so many problems with that. Like,
it even has this part where he's like, last time I saw the Saboteur, his half of his face was all burned off.
Yeah.
Just like Two-Face.
Just like Two-Face and Batman.
And yes, and then we don't know, will the Saboteur come back?
It's like when the Joker was locked up and he was about to go away, and then, he blows up some hospitals and he gets away. I forget the plot a little bit, but I'm sure that, the Joker has many escape scenes where that anyone could go and look up and borrow ideas from. Now, that's the Showstopper, but it's not where this show stops. Obviously, this is the season finale, and to our disappointment, really, and to the listeners' disappointment as well.
Yeah,
I really, really, really wanted to praise this book. I wanted to praise it up and down. I wanted to go, finally, some self-published work that's doesn't belong at the bottom of the bargain bin. This belongs on true shelves and it belongs in the reader's hands. No, astonishingly not. The Showstopper, it has nothing to offer anybody except a little bit of boredom, a little tiny moments of laughter, and but more laughing at the book than laughing with it.
There's at least one funny line that I have been saying on repeat, which is when someone is talking to someone of a lower class, they at once mutter, "How could you even speak to someone who makes less than a dog's wage?"
Yeah, and now dog's wage, if you're unfamiliar with the term, often used to disparage those who make less than a dog makes.
I guess.
Do service dogs get paid? Like I
don't know. I mean,
I get the scraps.
They get the bone scraps.
Bone scraps, yeah.
And that's really what this story is. It's a nice bone which had some meat on it, but it's been peeled off.
Yeah, it's a dog's wage.
Yeah, this book has been a dog's wage. Exactly.
Now, the BurnCast going forward is going to try a little bit harder. Maybe we will try throughout the season, because we did leave this book selection to after we had finished all other books.
Yes.
Now, I'm thinking what we do next time is we try to find a book that is actually good from the very beginning of the season. I'm going to save it for because I do want this podcast to have some redeeming authorial quality to it. Like, all these books were shit, but this one was a gem.
We don't like when we have to speak ill of a book.
No, I hate it. I want to say nice things. But no, sadly, we can't do that this time.
No,
and
unfortunately,
season 4 is just coming around the corner. Some big books coming up in season 4, real behemoths.
Oh yeah.
And I am going to deep dive into Amazon, and I'm going to fucking find it. Find that fucking tuna that's actually going to feed us for once.
Yeah,
and
we're going to find a book that I can say with confidence, this is something you should go out and read.
Yeah, buy this guy's book because he deserves it. Because that's the thing. Self-publish a book. You do your own marketing. Who's got the money? Who's got the time? Who's got the effort? Yeah. I mean, unless you are really lucky or really talented, chances are that the light isn't going to shine on you.
No.
Maybe we are that shining light.
Yes.
We're self-publishing's saving grace.
Yeah.
We are kind of like sometimes like a dark knight that saves these books from the sewers, and we can grappling hook them out to the top story, and maybe we can shine that big Batman light on them and show the world.
Yeah, we can let our skylight do the talking and say, hey, everyone, come look at this thing that we found.
This amazing book that is actually worth reading.
Yeah.
The Showstopper is not going to get that golden gleaming light.
No.
It's going to get, the janitorial mop.
Yeah, it's going to get a dog's wage.
It's going to get a dog's wage. Now, if you are writing stories, this is generally... I don't know if people that listen to this podcast actually write stories. Maybe I'm talking to myself, more than anyone else. But I believe that, it doesn't matter how good your writing actually is. It matters if you have a story to tell. If you have big ideas, if you have something complicated you want to talk about, an interesting dynamic, or maybe just a character's struggle through life.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter how flowery or well-spoken your sentences are.
I think that's a very key takeaway from this, is that Kyle Robertson is a good writer by definition of his prose and his structure and these sorts of things.
It's fine, it's great.
It got weaker over the course of the book. Well, the last 30% took a dive.
It got repetitive.
I also saw more mistakes near the end. Sometimes you write a book, you run out of steam at the end.
Especially with proofreading.
But I will say is that this is good writing, and he's got potential to write something good, I think. This is one of his first books. I'm sure that, with the right focus, he could pull something out.
Yeah.
The problem is that you gave focus to the wrong things here. The problem is that you have educated writing, but you don't have creative writing. It doesn't matter how good your words are if the story's not there.
Yeah.
Because I will read a shit book with a great story. I will suffer through, poor grammar, but I'm not going to remember every turn of phrase you did that was clever. What I will remember is if you had a good character, or you had a heart to your story.
Yeah.
I won't remember all the mistakes that were in between.
No. And I often think that, especially when it comes to the type of reading that we do, where we're looking through the awful sentences and we're going like, wait, there is something here. There is a story that wants to be told, that there's a little bit of magic in that.
Yes.
It's like something that was in someone's head and they've tried to paint it as best as possible, and you're trying to look past the painting and go, what is the scene? What is this magical world? And this is painted well, but it's a painting of
it's just a barn.
Or a city building. It's like a picture of Broadway. Like, it doesn't speak about characters' struggles, or all the characters are far too cheesy to be meaningful.
Yeah.
And with that, it's not like it's cheesy and funny. It's funny for the first time you read a piece of cheesy dialogue, and then if you're not going to do anything else with that, then it's going to be very boring and not funny.
So maybe that's the real purpose of the BurnCast, is, to look at books and try to tell them the way the author originally tried, but they just couldn't. And, maybe that's why the BurnCast is not the podcast that the industry deserves.
But it's the one that it needs. And also, maybe this podcast is also designed to make a little bit of money. Yeah. And now this is more directed towards the listeners.
We're reaching a turning point for the BurnCast.
Yes, we've upped the scale. We've upped the studio. We're going to bring it to a more vidtacular format. And this is going to mean that the podcast will not be any different. You'll still be able to listen to it on all your favorite platforms.
But you'll get to see it as well.
Yes. Now, and maybe that brings a little bit of extra spice. And if you want us to be bigger and better and more excited and, all the things that make the BurnCast so great, consider, buying us a coffee every month. It's very easy to support us through Patreon.
Yes.
And it really, really helps us a metric fuck ton.
Yeah, and that's our plea to the listeners, to the writers out there.
If you've got a book to review and you want to make sure it gets a good review, then Kyle, you missed out on a big opportunity here.
Send us a care package with some hard copies. And
Artie Foster is now my favorite person.
Yeah, we'll see how this review changes. If we
Yes, that was the Showstopper. That was season 3.
Yes,
that was the BurnCast. More BurnCast to come. Bigger, better, more bright and shiny. We've got season addendum. We've got specials coming up. We've got everything that you could ever want. All the entertainment. Stop watching other shows. Stop listening to other things. Music you don't even need because we make our music ourselves.
It's all in-house here at the BurnCast.
And it's going to be even better.
Yeah. So stay tuned, and we will see you very soon with the start of Season 4.
Thank you everyone for listening and supporting the show. We really hope you enjoyed it. If you did, be sure to subscribe and join in the conversation with us on one of our platforms. You can find us on Discord, Twitter, and Reddit. You can support the show through Patreon or just by sharing the show with your friends. Thanks!